Welcome to This Organized Life. If you're a mom, wife, or coffee lover seeking advice on how to reduce clutter and reclaim time, look no further than your host, Lori Palau, founder of Simply Be Organized and author of Hot Mess, a practical guide to getting organized. For a lot of people, clutter is their dirty little secret, but it doesn't have to be. Each week, we will share practical tips, chat with experts, and provide strategies on how to keep you organized. I hope that by sharing our stories, you feel a little less alone and more empowered to tackle the areas that are holding you back. So let's get started.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of This Organized Life podcast. I'm your host, Lori Palau, and I am so excited to be kicking off 2023 with this room by room organizing series. First of all, before we kind of even get to it, if you are new to our show, welcome. I am so happy that you're here. We've been doing this for, oh my gosh, I think this is the start of our 6th year, and we've got over 300 episodes on all kinds of topics related to living an organized life. So first things first, make sure you click the subscribe button or that little plus button wherever you're listening. Follow us, listen to any of our back catalog. And if there's a show topic that you're interested in, make sure that you either send us a DM, leave us a message, whatever, because we love bringing content that is relevant to you. And that's how we came up with this series, because a lot of the stuff that we talk about doesn't get super granular and in the weeds. But this month, everybody is in this mode where they're going to get their diet in order and their budgets in order and their lives in order. And with that comes organization. And so we are doing this room by room series, and we are kicking things off with the hub of the home, the kitchen. And so I invited a great guest on. Many of you, if you've listened before, might remember her from last year. She's one of our SPL partners. Her name is Lisa Eckerle. And Lisa, I'm going to bring her out in a minute. She's a mom to 2 littles, and she runs an amazing company outside of Indianapolis called Sort Support, and specializes in all different types of areas, and space planning in general is really kind of her lane. And so one of the biggest areas in our homes that require intentionality and planning is the kitchen. So without further ado, let me welcome my good friend, Lisa Eckerle, back to the show. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, friend. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
I need to get like an app on my phone that does like an applause sign.
Oh, yes,
applause
we could do
noise.
it. There you go. Kimberly, insert applause.
There we go. Thank you.
So I gave real top line overview.
Mm-hmm.
You've been on the show before, but as a refresh for our tried and trues, or for anybody new joining us, just tell us a little bit about you, your business, who you are, what you do.
Yeah. So Lori said I have 2 littles. They're 7 and 5, just turned 5. So next year, 2 kids in school.
That means you get a raise. No more daycare bills.
I think I'm going to buy a boat. Yes. So I started Sort Support 3 years ago. The first year was while I was in my full-time position in an advertising agency, which I have been in advertising. Well, it was in advertising for about 15 years. So started Sort Support, did it on the side for a year. Now I'm 2 years in, and it's been glorious.
And a quick side note for anybody, and I know we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, but I'd like to point out for anybody out there that's maybe considering making a career change or maybe embarking on something new with the start of the new year. Lisa is living proof. I've had a front row seat to the evolution of her business the past couple of years, and she is really living proof that you can start this, you can make this a viable business. There's a lot of, fear and uncertainty and all the things that come along with starting your own business. And I'm not saying that they aren't true and valid, but it can be done, and you are living proof. So I just, as an inspiration to others out there that might be thinking, I would love to do this, but I don't know if I could make a go of it, or I don't know if the time is right, because you started this business and you had like little kids at home and just made it happen.
Right. And so many people told me, oh, don't do it when your kids are little. Wait. And I actually got what I thought was bad advice from another female entrepreneur. And my husband at the time was trying to make partner at his firm. And she told me, you should probably put your stuff on hold and let your husband, shine in his role and try to get that. And you pay attention to the home life with your littles, and it's his time now.
Is this 1955?
Yeah, right. The Enneagram 8 in me was like, okay, bring it on. And I will basically
show you.
Yes. Like it lit a fire under my butt.
Yeah.
Let's just say. Yeah.
Don't listen to the naysayers, people.
Right.
Don't to the naysayers.
My husband made partner and I grew my business at the same time. And our children were fed, bathed, loved, cared for, all of the above.
Mic drop. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Well, on that note, this is why I figured I'm bringing you in for this, really to do the heavy lifting here with me for kitchens. We're going through this room by room series to help people really get granular about the pain points. How and where should we start? Because I think a lot of people have this intention, just like with working out, of like, I want to be fit. I want to be organized. I want to do these things, but they don't necessarily have the right strategies in place or necessarily approach it in a way. A lot of people will go out, and many people have been in the situation where you're like, oh, let me go buy this and make it work. Or they hear something and think, oh, I should just go and do this and this will solve my problem. And what I want to do is we all believe that there's not a one size fits all, but there are some specific practices as people who have been out in the trenches doing this, that we could share some wisdom with our listeners out there on where some of the pain points are. What are some specific tips and strategies? Where do you even begin? Where should you prioritize and why? So I know I just gave you a really big, tall order, but I'm just going to let you kind of riff on that and just talk about, some of the stuff that you see since you're out on the front lines more than I am.
Out in the wild.
You're out in the wild.
Yeah. I see way too many gadgets.
Gadgets.
So sick of all of the marketing ploys, used to be in that world of, here is something to be more convenient and to make something faster and to get rid of any hurdle you have of eating a fruit or a vegetable. But it's just too much. You don't need one gadget that gets you through one piece of fruit, or, the stuff that dices your onions, the stuff that cores your apple, the stuff that cuts your egg. There's this yellow stick I've seen in so many people's kitchens that I always have to ask, excuse me, what is this for again? And
is it the grapefruit knife?
Yes, it is the grapefruit knife. Yes.
I had one of those back in the day, and Josh used to shame me for it. And I did use it because I was a big grapefruit person, but
it's what I always laugh. You don't need it. But I always laugh when I ask the person, like, what is this for? And they're like, I don't know. Does this belong in the kitchen? I'm like, I don't know. It's yours, not mine.
Well, I think you bring up a really good point, which is ditch those single use, unless you're talking about like, there's certain things like maybe you need a peeler or a garlic press, but those like single use gadgets that you buy. And can I tell you what aside from the grapefruit knife, what my gadget confessional is?
Please.
This was, and I got rid of it.
Let me cue the music for you. Confessional.
Okay. It was the thing for the zoodles that you put in. It was like a spiral thing when the zoodles became really popular. And in all transparency, I was online at a store and it was on an end cap. And I was like, it's a few bucks. I'm baking zoodles. Why not use it? And it was a pain in the neck to clean.
Oh, that's the worst.
It was, it just, And it didn't sit right in my drawer, which for somebody who's an organizer was a
potato masher. I hate potato mashers.
Yeah. It was, and I finally was like, you know what, this is just it's not worth it. So I think, and gadgets, I think I remember when I used to be out in the field a lot because they're inexpensive. So people are like, oh, let me get it. Let me try it. And they don't think about it.
Right.
But then all of that adds up and your space is now overrun with gadgets.
Yeah. And this is how I help people really look at them in a new light, is gather all of them. A lot of people say the easiest way to start organizing is start small, start with a drawer. Well, that's hard to do in a kitchen because chances are what's in one drawer of a category will be in like 6 other drawers. So you really need to try to gather everything in one category. So I try to put like all fruit stuff together, all vegetable prep stuff together, all stirring stuff together, all cutting stuff together. So you can actually see what you have together. And then I always ask people, really, there are 2 questions of how many, with the cooking spoons in particular, how many pots are you stirring at one time? You may only have 4 or 6 burners. So why do you have 17 spoons?
I was like 7. It's more like 17. Exactly.
Yeah. So it's, how many pots can you stir at one time? And another question is, how often are you running your dishwasher? Because I know in my family, we have young kids, we're going through a lot of stuff. We run it every night. So even if I have one of something, I'll have it the next day when I need it again, because we run our dishwasher more often. So it's kind of asking yourself those 2 questions when you're really going through the stuff. And when's the last time I ate a grapefruit?
Or could I eat a grapefruit and use an actual regular knife to cut it? Or
the olden days.
Yes, go back in the olden days. Yeah, no, I think that's really gadgets are a big thing. And then I guess after you've categorized it, I would think maybe corralling it, or like, what is your next step? So like people have then, because I think one of the biggest things with kitchens is creating those defined zones.
Yes.
To help.
That's a huge thing. So it always depends what people do in their kitchen. Some people, the kids' homework is done in the kitchen. Maybe bills are paid in the kitchen. So you want to create zones that work for your lifestyle, but you really want to put the thing that you use for that activity in the space where you're going to do the activity. So you have zones for cooking, you have zones for prepping, you have zones for baking, you have zones for storing, and then for cleaning up. And then you have like your own customized zones for the homework. So instead of maybe not having a junk drawer, you actually have a drawer in there with pencils and erasers and stuff that the kids actually need to do their homework.
Or no, I don't want to get controversial here, but I do think there has to be a space. Well, I shouldn't say there has to be, but it's okay to have a space where you have, a stapler and random things, but with intention that one might call a junk drawer, but it's not really a junk drawer. It's like, it's a multi-purpose drawer. A multi-purpose drawer. But I think the key is that you want all those drawers to be functioning for you and taking up like getting the most out of them that you possibly can. Right. So I know we've talked about this before. My kids used to do homework at our breakfast bar in our kitchen. And we had the luxury of an extra drawer, I'm air quoting, that I was able to convert to like a homework hub for them, where we had, glue sticks and staplers and crayons and pencils and all of that stuff for them, index cards, so that everything was right there. And for people that don't necessarily maybe have a drawer to spare, using a rolling cart, a cart.
Exactly.
Something that you can do.
Yeah. I had a client, I created a homework cart for her, and it got put in this closet that's in between the dining room, the living room, and the kitchen, because that just so happens where her kids like to do their homework on any given night. They move. So she has this cart put away when they're, not having to worry about their homework, so they can not stress about it all the time and relax. But she even laughed where she likes to kind of, if they're not doing their homework when they're not supposed to, she can just wheel it into whatever room they're in and kind of passive aggressively give them some hints. And
here you go. Exactly.
Yeah, just follow them around with it until it's done.
So we have gadgets is a pain point. Mm-hmm. What about some of the other things like appliances? Like, what about that? Because I feel like that's another area where, and we're just coming off the heels of Christmas, right? So people are getting like, oh, it's Christmas. Let me get a new Instapot or Crock-Pot or Dutch oven or air fryer or whatever the latest and greatest mixer is. So, and those things take up a lot of space. So maybe you could just kind of talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, those are hard because they aren't as easily put into a crevice that you will never see again, like the gadgets are. So first, before you ask for it for any holiday or birthday, make sure you have the space for it. Or like if you're getting an Instapot, can it take the place of your Crock-Pot? If you're getting not an air fryer, can you get rid of your deep fryer? Thinking through before you purchase is always a great idea. But the number one thing I always see, first of all, well, no, I'll do that. So the first thing I see all the time is people want to put appliances on the top shelf of the pantry or on the floor of the pantry because they think, oh, I'm not using this every day, or I use it 3 times a year, so I'm going to put it out of the way. Great idea. But out of the way can also be a different room. Maybe it's in your garage, your utility room, your basement. It doesn't all have to be in the kitchen if you're not using it that often. But putting it up high and down low is actually what you do not want to do, because half the time these things are so heavy that it's going to fall on your head if you're getting it from up top, or you're going to break your back picking it up from down low. So you want to try to find a space that is in between your shoulders and your knees for your appliances.
Lee, I have a confession to make.
Yeah.
Our air fryer is on the floor of my pantry.
Laura, what are you going to do after this podcast?
Yes, I'm going to find a new spot for it.
I'll come help you.
Oh, my goodness. But I think that's great advice because it is true. A lot of times I've seen people put like really big, heavy things and it's dangerous. It's really very dangerous. It is dangerous. It's hard to get. And I think that's a big one, but I love what you said about taking stuff out. Another thing that to kind of piggyback off of especially with bigger appliances, if your space is limited, think about swapping stuff out seasonally, like you do with your clothes. So I know I've had clients that are like, I use my Crock-Pot or my Dutch oven or fill in the blank a lot better. I make a lot of soups and stews and chilies, but in the summer, I don't really use it. So maybe what you do, but maybe in the summer, they do a lot of outdoor entertaining. So you just take that big appliance and then cycle it out with, pitchers and other serving things or a margarita machine. I don't know, something that would be more relevant to that season. Because I think a lot of times people think about, I put this in the kitchen. This is a kitchen item. It belongs here. And like, that's it. Game over. Yes. And we could be fluid with our kitchens. And Josh used to joke that like, okay, where are we moving stuff to now? But I think as we go through seasons of our lives, stuff's going to naturally morph around.
Yeah, absolutely. My mom used to change our kitchen around all the time when we were younger. And we used to get so angry because we didn't know where anything was.
Yeah.
So then now I'm like, oh no, she was just being strategic. Not annoying.
Well, you bring up but I want to talk about kid stuff because I think that is really an area where I did a lot of changes when my kids were little. And I'm curious as a mom with little kids, how you handle this, because I was always big on fostering independence with my children. Yeah. And so I put their cups and bowls and stuff like accessible, even though it wasn't necessarily the place I'm air quoting for anybody on YouTube. It wasn't necessarily the place for plates, but I was like, I'm making this a zone for them to be able to get their own stuff. I'm just wondering what you do in your house and what you recommend to your clients.
That's the first thing I do for all clients, is to take the kids' stuff and put it all together, because usually it's the kids' plates is with the parents' plates. The kids' cups are with the parents' cups. Well, put all the kids' stuff together, and now you just have one kid's place, and it's down low and they can help themselves. The day my kids got to pick their own cup apparently was the best day in our kitchen's life.
Yes,
because
I love that.
They were so happy just being able to, like, it's not only independence, but you're giving them some control.
Well, you're giving them ownership, and then they can also help with setting the table, at least their stuff, or putting their stuff away if they're helping you unload the dishwasher. So it feeds into other responsibilities above and beyond just the physical location of where you're having stuff.
Yes.
And I think as we talk about, again, time management and all of that other stuff that comes along with being organized, that is an easy kind of low hanging fruit, no pun intended, of where you can start to incorporate, the kids and other people into the mix.
Yeah. And it's thinking of your categories, not as the categories you think you should have, but the categories that work for your family. So some people want lunch, dinner, snack categories. Other people want pasta, grains, Italian categories. So when you're thinking of what goes where, think of what works for you, not just this is the kitchen, so this is the way it has to be.
I love that. I love that. Let's just move a little bit into the pantry. Again, some people that are listening may have a separate pantry, whether it's a reach in, walk in. Other people don't have that, and they're just using cabinets in their house. So different areas, different categories, I should say, tend to stress people out more than others.
I see a lot of people trying to put certain categories in their pantry because it's food. All food goes in the pantry, where I don't exactly agree with that. So what helps so much, there are really 3 or 4 main food categories that can come out of your pantry and go into your kitchen: spices, oils, vinegars, sauces. All of that stuff, I'm a firm believer, should be next to your stove where you're actually using the stuff. So taking that out of your pantry so you don't have to walk that many extra steps when you're cooking and potentially burning stuff like me, because I am not a good cook. I need that stuff close. So creating a zone, like I said, right next to your stove for those kind of go-to ingredients is really a game changer sometimes.
I love that. You know what I do for my spaces? And again, I think people have to look at what their unique spaces are.
Right.
Because my kitchen isn't huge. So my pantry, which is small, reach in, is really close to my stove. I have an over the door rack. And I like it because with spices, you can only go like 2 spices deep, because I think especially with spices, the common theme that I see with people is they either buy a spice for a particular recipe, similar to the gadget, right? To the gadget syndrome. You're buying it for this one thing and then you forget it, or it just gets lost in the abyss because it's not organized. So then you need it again. And then you go, and the next thing you know, you've got 12 bottles of cumin.
And you've used a teaspoon total.
Exactly. And then stuff expires and all of the things. So, there's a lot of different kind of schools of thumb. And do you store them on risers? Do you store them in a drawer? Do you store them in a turntable? Again, I don't think there's a one size fits all, but I think you and I were talking offline. I think we can both agree there's one area that we both do not like, and you want to share it with everyone?
Yes. I have a client's daughter who tells me I'm not allowed to say hate, but I'm saying it on this one. It's the spice pullout.
That skinny spice pullout, people, it's like
on the bottom
yes
section. So everybody was like, oh my God, why do you hate it? because you can't see your spices. You can only see that front row. Sometimes you can see all the top. I've seen the pullouts, even though that had like a wooden top to it. You couldn't see anything. So then your spices go to die in the middle. You have to walk around the other end or the other side to see those. You have to bend down awkwardly to see the second, third, or fourth level. Your butt's up in the air when company is over, just trying to get to a spice. I hate them. So I always take spices out of there. And here's what you can do with it that a lot of people don't really realize is that those shelves are removable. So usually they're, like I said, 3 or 4. Take them out. So they're like 2 and they're higher now. And I actually like to put the oils and vinegars and sauces there because they're bigger. You can see them. They don't get lost. You can more easily grab them. If you have a wider spice pullout, which some people do, you can put a turntable in there.
Yeah, I've seen ones that you can fit like the small, like the 9-inch turntable you could put in.
Exactly. Yep. Or another idea, I've put cookbooks in there before because you can see the spines from the top.
Oh, interesting.
And I've also taken like clear skinny bins that have, 5 or 6 inch tall sides to them. Yep. And put cookware, cooking utensils in there. So it freed up a drawer that I like to use for spices. And then your utensils just sat in there right by your stove.
I love it. So I think, again, what I want you guys to walk away with is that you can create, you don't have to use just the space that was gifted to you when you inherited your kitchen. Yeah. If there is something that you're like, this isn't working for me, having the flexibility to kind of move things around, which leads me remove them, which leads me to another area, because I don't know about you, but I hear a lot of people going, I'm struggling with lids, or I want a cabinet where I have or I want a drawer where I have a cabinet. Like they're not in a position where they're like, listen, I'm going to gut my kitchen and redo it, but I need it to be a little bit more functional for my needs. How can you, I guess for lack of a better word, what's your recommendation for people to customize their kitchens to their lifestyle when it's maybe a little kind of cookie cutter?
I mean, honestly, that's where organizing product comes into play, but using it in a way that may not it's not like, oh, this is obvious how to use this, but divided rack organizers where you can adjust kind of the width of the stand-up racks. I love using those for lids. I love using them for pans and sheets and muffin tins and stuff that normally is stacked on top of each other. And then, you're trying to make a nice breakfast for your family on a Sunday morning and you wake them all up because you got the muffin tins out and everything banged around and fell on the floor. So it's getting rid of stacks and piles as much as you can, going vertical with them. So that helps lids a ton, whether that be pots and pans or Tupperware. Are we still calling it Tupperware?
I call it Tupperware. It Tupperware. I don't know. I'm still in the 70s. I call it Tupperware.
Food storage containers.
I love, I use those. I'll link to them. I'll put a link to a couple of the different lid organizers that you can use. I use them also in my house because I don't have like a built-in for cookie sheets or cutting boards.
Yeah. And I don't want kitchens don't.
Right. I mean, newer kitchens, a lot of newer high-end kitchens do, but my kitchen, it's very nice, but it's not, a custom kitchen. And so I just use one of those and I have them in a narrow shelf. So it's only like one of those, narrow cabinets, only like a 12-inch wide. It's not big, but I just put it there and it allows me to just slide in for my cutting boards. Oh, I also use them for cutting, serving stuff.
Yes.
I have another one.
I was going to say the 2 places I use them the most is above a double oven or above the refrigerator.
Yeah.
Because you usually have the vertical height you need. You just can't reach anything up there.
And it's a lot easier, especially for tall people like you and I, but it's a lot easier to pull it out, like you be pulling a book off a shelf,
Yes.
than trying to navigate getting something as a stack from the bottom of the pile.
Exactly. And then you're not messing up anything else. Nothing else moves when you take that out.
Yeah. So, all right, again, products, we're not product pushers, but it does go without saying that, there are certain things that really help products. So if you were to kind of give your stamp of approval of some general categories, obviously we said those, those expandable, wire racks.
Yeah.
What else do you have? Drawer dividers, things like that.
Drawer dividers and drawer organizers. So going back to our gadget problem, half the problem is that things just don't have a home to go to. And, you just throw something in a drawer when you don't have, borders for where it should go. And then you can't find stuff. That's where you just go down a huge, terrible rabbit hole from there. So, getting drawer dividers or organizers creates the zones for you. So you put like with like. So one of my favorite things that I've been doing in kitchens is creating like 2 prep drawers if you have the space. Okay. One is like all your prep utensils, and the other one is all of your cutting utensils. So you have your peelers in there, your dicers, your pizza cutter, your knives. So, and everything has a home. I'm not saying like individually one thing in each space.
Well, it's easier to know where to go and grab something like, oh, we're having pizza tonight. This is the drawer where I keep that.
Yes. And you know where it goes back. So emptying your dishwasher now is so much quicker and nicer and not a chore.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean, it's still a chore, but
I
at least can get it done quicker.
So we've got drawer dividers. We've got the lids.
Turntables.
I'm making notes, people, so I can input all this in the show notes.
A ton of people do not know what to do with those awkward corner cabinets, the upper cabinets.
Oh, yes.
Turntables are your answers.
Yes. Love that. Yes, they are.
Or just putting big stuff in there. Like, don't put a ton of small things in it. Put a few bigger things in there that you're just grabbing this way or this way, but the turntable really. A ton of people also have their coffee maker, like right underneath there. Coffee cups on that turntable on that bottom shelf in a corner cabinet works perfectly.
Can we just talk for a second about coffee cups?
Sure thing, but you're talking to a non-coffee drinker.
I know. That's a whole other, like, Lisa and I are in sync in a lot of things. This is not one of them, but we'll say that for another day. Okay. So I don't know about you, but one of the biggest things that I see when it comes to clutter and excess when I go into somebody's home is 10,000 coffee cups. They've got the ones that maybe came with their dinner set, but it's not really functional because they're not the right size. Then you've got your big favorite ones, and then you've got a holiday one or all these things. And so you open up that cabinet and it is just vomiting mugs.
Yes.
And shockingly, there's a lot of emotional clutter that comes with that.
There is.
People get very picky about parting with their mugs.
I had a client, I had done a few spaces for her, and she was like, okay, we're going to do the kitchen next, but you're not telling me to get rid of my mugs. And I was like, dear client, I'm going to tell you to get rid of some of your mugs. Sorry.
We have had similar conversations with here as well with some of my clients. And, so how do you navigate that? So if somebody's listening out there and they're like, yeah, we've got 65 coffee, tea, hot chocolate mugs, whatever.
And let me say, I love my hot chocolate and my hot apple cider as much as the next person. So I understand that the coffee mug is part of the experience. You have your favorite and you need it. So I get it. But it goes back to the dishwasher question. How often are you running your dishwasher? So how many coffee mugs are you actually going to use? And do you use a different one every day? If you constantly are going back to the same one, that's something to consider. But we very delicately hold their hand and walk them through what does this coffee mug mean to you? Or where can it be repurposed? Or where can we store it in a different way? Like if you truly love these coffee mugs and they are part of your being, there's like this 2-tier cake stand. I can see it at Target now. It's walnut with a gold frame around it. Put that next to your coffee maker and put your favorite mugs or your matching mugs and really pretty mugs on that. Those are your go-to. Maybe the other ones just go up higher or go in a memory box if they're really that sentimental. But then you can also repurpose them. So maybe the one you love, or it means something to you, but you don't like using it
I'm
anymore.
thinking of the ones, and again, I'm a mom, people, but I'm thinking of the ones like your kid went to like paint and pottery, and colored it, and then it got glazed, and you're like,
but the mug stinks.
But even so, like, are you really drinking out of this mug? Like, is this really the mug that you're going to? But
no,
I understand
you never want to wash it.
Right. Or you feel guilty. Like, I don't want to get rid of it. My kid made it, but like repurposing that to use it as like a pencil holder or something. I don't know.
Use it as a pencil holder. You can put your measuring spoons in them. So it's still in your kitchen. You can put straws in them for your kids to grab. Like there's so many things that you can do.
Yeah. I agree. So I have a rule of thumb. Again, I'm not usually like this is the way to do it, but this is something that I kind of unofficially instituted. And it's what I tell people if they ask me about how to organize their mugs. I always say, or cups. I have a 1-level rule. So, if you open up a cabinet, you see people stacking. They stack the cups, they stack the mugs. Yes. And then it's like, oh, I want this one. And it's a game of Tetris to try to get it out. I say, because again, I believe that your cabinets were meant to have white space. I believe that your drawers are meant to have white space. I don't think everything should be crammed in. So kind of going on that same rule of thumb, if you can fit it within the confines of your cabinet, shelf, whatever, and you can fit it comfortably on one row without having to stack it, you're golden. Once you start having to go to the second level, game over. That's when you need to start making some decisions of, are we going to relocate it? Are we going to get rid of it? What are we going to do with it? We'll repurpose it. So that's just kind of my rule of thumb when it comes to mugs. I'm looking at my list. I feel like we're giving some really good tips and strategies. Anything else? Any other products? Any other
it's funny
that you want to share?
Yeah. We talked about pain points with gadgets and appliances.
Yes.
Water bottles. There are so many water bottles in people's lives.
Too many.
Match the lids. If there's no lid, the bottom goes.
Well, that's the same with Tupperware.
Exactly.
And that's it with Tupperware too, people. Yes. That's another spot. So yes.
Start there. Just play the matching game. Get your kids involved. It's totally fun. But pare it down to the one you use day to day, the one you use for sports, the one maybe that that is special to you because of the logo on it. But to keep your lid with the water bottle. Everybody separates those. Same with Tupperware. Well, Tupperware, I can see it.
I was
sometimes.
like, I have to disagree with the Tupperware because I nest. But are you retracting? Are you retracting that? Okay,
yes, I take it. I take it away. You can do it either way. It depends on your space. But with the water bottles, keep the lid with the bottom. Like it makes no sense why you have to go fish for the lid. And then, earlier we were saying, think vertically. Well, now think horizontally because they're actually wine bottle holders.
Yes.
That you can stack and you place the water bottle in there horizontally. And again, like we were saying with the vertical rack, you get one water bottle out and it does not affect any other water bottle.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm going to link to that also because I think that's great. Yeah, there's a lot of excess when it comes to that. And I know for me, there are ones that I like a lid that's attached. Like, I don't like it when you have to take it apart. So just get rid of the ones that you don't use. You're like, this one really doesn't hold as much water as I thought it would, or as much vodka when I'm traveling. When I'm a traveler.
This one's clear and people are going to realize I'm drinking wine, not water.
Yeah. Well, That's why you has a color, use a hydro flask. But speaking of which, wait a second, completely unrelated, but it is about water bottles. So at the time of this recording, we are in the throes of Christmas presents being delivered to my house on the daily.
Yeah.
I went to open up packages yesterday. My hand to God, this happened. So I'm opening up packages and this package was addressed to me and I opened it up and it was this new Stanley 40-ounce handled water bottle that I remember looking at. I never bought it. I don't know where it sent it. I don't know where it showed up from. I asked Josh if he bought it for me. It did not come as a gift. I tracked all of my packages. I went in to see, was I charged something? I have this brand new water bottle that showed up out of nowhere. So if somebody out there sent me a water bottle,
Merry Christmas.
thank you.
Thank you.
It's really nice. Now I have to get rid of, have to make some
one
decisions
in,
to make room for that. Exactly. But I'm just putting it out there. So if anybody sent this to me somehow, thank you.
You're going to get like
lovely.
12 people saying me.
Well, we looked it up. Do you know how much this water bottle costs?
$50.
$72.
Oh,
now, even if somebody bought it at like a Black Friday special.
Yeah, could be.
Still, it's a lot of money.
It was addressed to you.
It was addressed to me.
Okay.
And yeah, very strange. But it made me think of it when you were talking about the water bottles.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
So anyway, sidebar on that. Now, but back to our organization. I think that's great. Yeah. Any of these things that are really getting a lot of play on the regular, water bottles, coffee, a lot of your, even setting stuff up so that it's easily accessible. Think about your ease of retrieval.
And we talked about kids earlier, making a lunch zone. Like anything that you use to make your kids lunch, put it all in the same place.
I love that. Yeah. When that was one of my least favorite household chores, obligations.
Do you want to know how lucky I am?
Your husband does it?
Every morning before I'm even awake.
Yeah. Well, Josh, that was one of the things that Josh took over when he stopped traveling as much and was a little bit more home-based. My girls were a little bit older at the time, but they were still getting school lunches. And he said, what can I take over? What can I take off your plate? And I, without hesitation, said school lunches. And I was like, no backsies. And so then whenever he would travel and I had to do it because he wasn't there, I was like, oh, so.
Yes. There was a time, I think Nina, it was like 2 weeks into kindergarten and Matt was gone. No, it was a little bit more. I don't know when it was, but it was the first time in kindergarten that I had to do her lunch. And I'm like running after her as the bus is here. Like, I forgot this because she doesn't take her lunch every day.
Oh my gosh.
So I completely failed.
Oh no, it's one of those things that
I got it done in like 1 minute because everything was right there.
Everything was right there. Well, I want to just pivot before we kind of start to wrap things up. Because I think if people haven't already picked up on it, your approach with organizing is very strategic, and it's not just about the aesthetic, although I know aesthetic is a huge part of your work and the stuff that you do, but you approach it from a very like a space planning, organizational design. As a matter of fact, I think you have renamed yourself, created this. Is it in Google yet? Like if I type it in, is it?
Oh, not yet.
Wikipedia about it?
I'm gonna write them a letter after this.
Perfect. But I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, because I think it goes, I think it's worth mentioning for our listeners to just know, that this is a thing that like you are out there offering this. So
yeah, and it can be vertically or local to my peeps here in Indy.
For sure.
It's essentially when you're building a house or renovating a kitchen or a primary closet even too. You have your interior designer, you have your contractors, your builders. They do an excellent job of their work. After talking to a few interior designers, what they struggle with is the space concept. They know it looks good. They know what will work for you from a decor and aesthetic point of view. And they know a lot of functionality, but they don't know the depths that professional organizers know functionality. And there are so many decisions that a homeowner has to make, whether they're building or renovating, that there is so much decision fatigue. And when you are going through your trim meeting, your trim walkthrough, and all of a sudden you have to decide what your primary closet is going to look like, they're like, okay, how much hanging space do you need? Done. How many drawers do you need? Done. Technically, I think they forget about asking about drawers. Like I had a client just moved into a new house, 0 long hang space, none. And then she wanted a broom closet in her kitchen. Well, they're fine. It was a really long cabinet with a bunch of shelves inside. No place for a broom.
And there's probably no outlet either. So she wanted to hang like a dustbuster
in her appliance garage. Like they did one of those appliance garages on the counter where you just lift up. No plug in there, no hole for a plug in. Yeah. So it's thinking through these things. So when you are doing your renovation or your new build, you have more people on your team, on your side, helping you think through these scenarios and your lifestyle and your needs in a whole new way that sometimes gets overlooked, because these are last minute decisions usually that the homeowner has to make. And I had a friend of mine that just built, and she was like, we were this close to a divorce because we were tired of decision making.
Well, and most people know what they like, and that they don't always think about it on that granular level of how is my space going to function. And so that's really the kind of the lens that you're looking at it.
Yes. And kitchen designers love them, but a lot of dinner plates aren't fitting in upper cabinets here lately because they're not deep enough. And my client had, dinner plates that she was not going to get rid of because they were sentimental to her. So it's not like, just go buy new dinner plates. So she had to put those elsewhere. And, pantries that have shelves that a giant can't reach. I had a lower shelf, like they were open shelves. You could reach the second one. I'm 5'9". I could barely reach it. I had to put turntables across the whole thing just to reach the very tip part of that. Or they had 24-inch deep lower cabinets in their pantry that needed to be a drawer.
Yeah. 24 inches, people, just as a rule of thumb, if something's 24 inches, it needs to be a drawer. It needs to be a pullout, and it needs to be a drawer. Yes. That is way too deep for a shelf. Yes. Shelves should not be deeper than 16 inches.
Especially lower shelves. I mean, hello, I don't want to get down on my belly to get the snack that my kid lost back there 5 months ago.
So if people want to, and I think this is a perfect segue. So if people want to learn more about those services, or even just to connect up with you, to follow you on Instagram, learn more about, what you do and what you're up to, give us all the places, all the handles, all the things.
So on Instagram, I am at Sort Support. On Facebook, it's Sort Support Indy, INDY. And then that's also my website too, sortsupportindy.com.
All right. And we'll have links to, again, all things Lisa right in our show notes. And you can also always find her on our Find an Organizer page, because she's part of our SPL Partner program, which is our community of professional organizers from all over. She's one of our amazing rock stars. So if you're always like, I forgot her name, but I know she was on there, and she's from Indiana, just go to our website and you'll be able to find her. So I love it. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. And as you know, because you're no rookie to the show, put you in the hot seat for our wrap up questions. So sit tight. All right, Lisa. Well, I could talk to you all day about, pretty much anything, and specifically kitchens, but thank you for giving some of these great tips and strategies and recommendations for people, because I know that they're really useful and practical. And a lot of these are things that don't require a lot of budget, and you can start doing today. So I encourage anybody that's stressed with their kitchen to start to do some of these. Now, for our wrap-up questions, you know that you're not a big reader, Okay. Because I remember this from last time. Okay.
Mhm.
But we love getting recommendations from our guests about what they're reading these days. And it's not just, or something that speaks to them. And it doesn't have to be an adult book. It could be a kid book. It could be some fiction book from when you were a teenager. It doesn't really matter. We just want to know something that has meant something to you. And before you answer, there's no pressure here, but we've been getting so many requests throughout the year, throughout 2022, of people wanting to download the book recommendations, that we actually created a Goodreads page. So you can follow, for anybody who is a reader, go to Goodreads and follow this Organized Life podcast. And you will see every book recommendation that our guests have ever done, and follow them and decide which ones speak to you and you want to read. So this will be added for our 2023 list. So
yeah, I'm not a reader when it comes to like professional books. And my reading really consists of like Hallmark movie level fiction.
It's okay.
And
no shame.
Kids books. So I'm going to give you a kids book. It's The World Needs More Purple People.
Okay.
This was actually a gift given to a friend of mine, to my daughter. Our friends have been in daycare for years, so she really knows my daughter. Okay. And it just hit home because it's more about like basically not being afraid to be a leader.
Gotcha. I like that.
Yeah.
That's good. We will link up to that.
Yeah. It's by Kristen Bell.
Oh, we love Kristen Bell.
I know, right?
Love Kristen Bell. All right. And then the tried and true staple question. If you've been with us, you know we ask every guest. And I'm curious I don't remember what your answers were the last time you were on the show, but in this particular season of your life, where do you feel the most organized and where do you feel like a bit of a hot mess?
So I improved on my life since last time, because my hot mess last time was my own closet. It was embarrassing to me, but
I'm sure it wasn't by anybody else's standards.
Terrible,
I'm sure it was
terrible.
fine.
But what I've done in the last year is really focus on our bedroom, because for the past 7 years now, we redid the kids' bedrooms, like when Nina was born, when she moved into the next room.
Oh, you moved them around like you did.
Room. Yeah.
Yeah. We did that too.
We ended up redoing 3 rooms I love them. And for the past 10 years, my husband and I have lived amongst our college furniture and furniture that was in my own nursery and furniture that like basically our parents purchased when we were kids. So just over the last few months, we finally redid our own bedroom. I now have like my sanctuary, as my husband calls it, and everything is in a much better place.
Oh, I can hear like the birds singing.
I have an adult dresser with drawer dividers, finally.
Wow. Wow. That's nice. All right.
Adulting.
And then on that note, because we're all about honesty and authenticity, Lisa, where in this season of your life are you feeling a bit of a hot mess?
I'm sure a lot of people will feel this way too, but it's photos, digitally,
physically, sure.
In frames. There's a frame right behind me now that I'm, the people from Target have become close members of our family because I haven't put in an actual picture in there. So, and especially with our profession, we just have so many other photos on our phone, especially taking like before and afters and reference photos and all of that.
Oh my gosh, for sure.
That's my hot mess.
I love it. It's funny that you mentioned that about our other photos, because every year I have an album, a digital album. I always say I was going to print them out, but I never do. But I have a digital album in Shutterfly. Shout out, free endorsement for Shutterfly. And so I was going through my camera roll, updating, gathering all of the 2022 ones that were missing. I try to do it periodically, but sometimes I fall off the wagon. So I was going through, and if I had 1,000 pictures, say, probably 800 of those 1,000 were like work related or just, I'm at Target, let me take a picture of this. Like there was a fraction of the photos that really were worth keeping. And
I get like the highlights, like, oh, here's a highlight from 6 months ago. And I'm like, oh, kids, someone else's house, someone else's house, someone else's house. Here's a product, kids, someone else's house. And my kids look through it and they're like, this is sad.
It is. I totally can relate. I can relate to that. Well, Lisa, I could talk to you all day. Again, thank you so much. Thanks for helping us kick off 2023 with some great tips, inspiration. If you are new to our show, welcome. Make sure you click the subscribe, follow button, whatever they're calling it these days. And if you feel like leaving us a review, we really appreciate it. Only the good ones, please, though. And share episode with a friend or share our show with a friend, because the more people that can find us through word of mouth, the greater it is for everybody. So we really, really appreciate you being here. And we're on social all over This Organized Life podcast. You can leave us questions, comments. If you have an idea, a topic idea that you'd like us to talk about, definitely we want to hear from you. So until next week. And I think next week we're going to be talking about closets. That's our next up. So I know Lisa started talking a little bit about them, but we're gonna do a deep dive on closets in next week's episode. So make sure you tune in. Until then, I'm Lori Palau. Peace out. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please spread the love and share it with your friends. And if this is your first time joining us, make sure to click the subscribe button wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, please leave us a review so other people know that our show is worth the listen. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram at This Organized Life Podcast. And if you'd like to connect with us, you can head on over to our website at simply the letter B like boy organized.com, which is filled with tons of resources, including free downloads, checklists, links to our amazing organizing partners, and all of our digital offerings. I'll see you next week for another episode of This Organized Life.